Sophie, what seed saving tips would you have for people who are wanting to just learn how to save seeds and propagate seeds for themselves, whether they're a
Oh,
backyard gardener or a big, massive farmer farming thousands of acres? Because I think
all
they're
right.
transferable, right? Those,
There are a lot of the same things apply, definitely. The first thing what would be my biggest advice is before you start, do just a bit of reading about, how plants actually propagate and how they can cross-pollinate. And because a lot of people have an idea that you can just save all seed, which is true. Obviously, you can save all seed. But as you probably know, like the plants we eat are cultivated plants. So it's our gardeners we are sort of the stewards of the seeds, if you will, and the sort of, selecting over time, getting the tender and sweet varieties and getting those, those heirloom seeds as well. They are the product of centuries of natural selection by us as growers. So if you understand that cross-pollination is a thing, then it's also wise if you want to have the same offspring that you actually don't plant different varieties too close together. That's the first.
right. So can you
Do
just
that.
give us an example of some cross pollinators?
Yes, like legumes, for instance, like beans or squashes, for instance. So I want to sort of note on that because people always tell me, but I mean, my beans get, they get seeds and then I can plant them and then there comes another bean plant. And I'm like, yes, and that's actually part of the fun. So if you're a bit like I am, I'm quite adventurous. I do sometimes just like to see what what mixtures came out of it, and sometimes it's great, like with zucchinis you can get really fun varieties that are just a mix of two different strains. So I don't, my advice is not never do it, but if your goal is I really want a butternut squash, then it is important to know that you should probably only plant butternut squashes, at a certain distance that year. The same goes for your beans. Like if you're really trying to, mimic what you so enjoyed last season, then it is important that you stick with one variety at a time. Or if you have, a bit of a bigger piece of land, if you place them, relatively further apart
Yeah,
and you mob seed. Yeah.
is there a minimum amount of space to put between those cross pollinators?
There sort of is, and I'm very like it's bad that I don't know the exact numbers for each type because it depends a little bit if they're obviously insect pollinated or if they are actually wind pollinators. So wind pollinators you need a lot more distance, and if you have insect pollinators, if you plant them very densely together, and then you could we have for instance them about 40-50 meters apart, and then the likelihood that they will cross pollinate is there, but it's so much more likely that they'll be pollinated by their own variety because they're grouped in a bunch, right? Because so you can
Mhm.
imagine bees like they'll just hop from flower to flower to flower. So if all the flowers are really close, the probability of them pollinating their neighbor instead of the bean that is, let's say, 50 meters further out. I'm sorry, I'm doing meters, you guys. That doesn't mean anything to you.
Meters, that's fine. You know what we do? Most of the world does meters. It's America who does
It's
feet.
only the
And Canada.
Americans
So
who
I'm with you
do.
on the meters.
Okay, good.
We
That's
do
good.
both.
That's how that's how the state has basically indoctrinated us all into thinking that the whole world is like them. That's
Right? Right.
terrible. Yeah. So yes, that would be my advice. Is first of all, read a little bit about what your plant actually needs for it to what are the needs for it to pollinate? Is it a self-pollinating or is it cross-pollinating? Is it a wind pollinator and so forth and so on. Um, and then I would like to point out that if you obviously want to save seed, that the plant is going to have to live a lot longer than it would if you're harvesting it. So I like to, we have two gardens. We have our productive garden, which is downstairs, and then I have the herb garden, which is behind me. And my herb garden also serves as a seed garden. So when we have certain varieties of cabbages or well, anything really that we know that is easy to then clean and save, Philippe just gives me a few, and then I put them here in the garden up top, and I get to see it go into flower, and it goes through its whole life cycle. It's beautiful to watch, and then finally I get to harvest it. I actually harvested a lot of seed today by chance, a lot of
Wow.
seed and a lot of nigella.
Oh, I love that. Putting the seeds that you want to save in your herb garden. Brilliant. What seeds did you harvest today?
Harvested nigella seed. Do you know the nigella flower? It's like a black seed, and the flower is it's my personal favorite. I think it's one of the most beautiful flowers that exists. It's also edible, so I used to use it a lot when we had a restaurant open. The other ones are big poppies, so the English poppies. We had the pink and the purple and the white variety, so very nice color mix. Then we have a lot of Tuscany cabbage. That's like the palm kale, I think you call it in English. And there is now what I didn't harvest yet, but that is sometimes needed because that's another tip maybe for seed growers out there. A lot of the plants we know when we harvest are quite low to the ground, and everything when it starts to seed, it starts to shoot up, so it becomes very high. And some of them then, if you have a big wind gasp coming through or some rain, they sometimes tend to sort of fall over due to the weight. So today I perked up a lot of our coriander because it was all sort of starting to look a little sideways. And it's going to be a really great harvest. And I personally love coriander seed as well. So it was like I bunched it all together with a little bit of string to keep it upright so it dries nicely. So it's going to be good for harvest.
That's a really good tip. Cool.
Yeah.
Tips would you have for seed saving?
All right, seed saving. Seed saving, the most important part, obviously, is that you store it dry and at a very stable temperature. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your plants are really fully grown, and you want to leave the seed on for as long as you can, not missing that window when the plant will actually discard of it itself, just to start sowing, of course. So the way to check that is if it's different for different seeds, of course, but I can give an example. For instance, cabbage seeds. When cabbage seeds are ready, the plant becomes completely dried out and all the seed pods are completely dry as well. And when it's really done, it actually spring open by itself and it will start to drop the seed. So what you want to do is you want to wait to the moment where it's perfectly, completely dried out, and that you have to go and check it, 3 times a day, if you will. To start seeing when are the first seeds starting to pop. And that's when you can harvest the plant all the way at the bottom. And then you could bring it to a dark space, hang it upside down. You could, at that point, what we used to do, we had a very big room for this. We would lay them all down on very big white sheets, like cloths, really, like
Yeah,
a bed cloths.
like a bed sheet.
Yeah, like a bed sheet. Give it a few more days so that all the last ones that might have, just needed a few more days of maturing. And then you could stand on everything. You could just basically trample it. And then the good old way, I'm just giving you the process for one seed here. So I don't know if this is useful for all seed saving. Yeah, you then obviously have to clean it, which is a little bit the tricky part of saving seed. The smaller the seed, the trickier that gets. There are nice machines out there, though, that can do that. How do you say, like cleaning of the seed? But if you're doing it for home use, I feel like that's not really needed. Like we've never used one of those machines. We've always hand cleaned our seed. Sometimes a little tedious. The using the wind for that is often good, like shaking it in a bowl and then just throwing it up in the air, and then having the wind take off
Yes.
the husks, right? The shells. And then once you have your clean seed, the way that we store it is we have it in paper envelopes. We mark it, obviously the year, the name of the plant species and the variety, and the date that it was harvested. And then it goes into our pantry, which fluctuates a little between like 10 degrees to 15 degrees Celsius. The best is if you keep it as stable as possible and like no moisture, obviously. So all our paper bags go into a plastic bigger box, and that's where they are, free
Awesome.
from moisture.
Um, any do's or don'ts? Like, what's the biggest mistake that people make seed saving?
Putting it in plastic bags if they haven't dried it properly. I feel like that's a common mistake where people might not really get the moisture level right. So they'll harvest a bit prematurely. They'll have it dry, but it won't be dry completely. And then they'll put it in a plastic ziploc, and then you just end up with moldy seed. Another big no-no is indeed leaving it like in glass jars exposed to sunlight, just anywhere in your house. Like it's really best if you keep it out of direct sunlight, just because temperatures also will go up and down. I'm thinking there's probably like lots of other things you could do wrong,
Yeah,
but
and just why do we want to keep a steady temperature and cooler if preferable?
so it depends as well. Again, like seed saving is very specific to each different seed, right? So I'm giving sort of rule for most of them. But the reason that we want to keep it nice and stable is because they obviously react to the temperatures in the seasons, right? And moisture levels switching. So if you do it wrong, you could actually be triggering the seed to start its life cycle, and then it won't have what it needs, which is, water and soil and sunlight. So then it will actually die off again. Yeah. And
Yeah,
some,
and so
yeah,
and so once if a seed was to do that, so I'm a seed and I got a little bit of moisture in my bag and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna start to grow. And so then I start to grow and then I'm like, oh, I can't go anywhere. So then I die, but it looks like I'm still alive because or it looks like I'm still a seed because I'm still closed, right?
exactly.
And so can I grow again in that situation?
That depends a little. Like some seeds are a bit more, how do you say that, robust than others. But in general, what it will do definitely is it will reduce your germination rate. So let's say out of 100 seeds, that might have happened, not for all of them, depending on what happened to your seed. But overall, like if you started the process, my experience is that then they don't repart again. But I also want to say that maybe there is a possibility in certain seeds. I wouldn't know that. Do you know of any of that would be an option? No.
I actually don't. Like once yeah, once it's grown out, I don't.
No. I feel like like logic would dictate that it doesn't. That's also why plants make so many seeds, right? Because they're sort of banking on the fact that from all of these thousands of seeds, probably not all of them will make it because temperature switches and nature is obviously a very lively thing where you can have rain one day and then droughts for 2 weeks. So like if all of them would germinate at the same time, they would all die off again. So it's such a how I want to say like a sensitive and yet very robust system where even being 1 centimeter higher up in the soil might mean that you germinated, but somebody that, a seed that fell maybe a few days earlier and was covered by a little hedgehog digging for worms will only germinate, a few months later when those conditions arise again.
Have an amazing day. I love you.
You,
Appreciate you.
right.
Namaste.
Namaste. Ciao, ciao.
Be sure to go and check out The Farming Chefs at thefarmingchefs.com on the web, on Instagram at the_farming_chefs, on Facebook at The Farming Chefs, and on YouTube at The Farming Chefs. May your seeds flourish where you plant them, and may you be planted in fertile ground and nourish the seeds that are on your heart to grow your relationships, your health, your wealth, your sovereignty, and just who you are. May your seeds be nourished emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, and in all embodiment. You make yourself an amazing day. If you want to be part of a regenerative community that supports you in growing healthy, delicious, nutrient-dense food and helps support you in your health and living your best life, come and join our community at heartandsoilmagazine.com. Make yourself an amazing day. Big love and namaste.